Are we live? Testing. I think we're live. Hello. What's going on, Mayvizzle Voyeurs, Peeping Toms, all you sick freaks out there? How you doing tonight? Guess what? Night Shift Merch is bringing to you another episode of Deathmatches and Death Metal, officially sponsored by Night Shift Merch. I gotta shout them out right now with that Black Friday deal that's going on. I always point the wrong way. That Black Friday deal that's going on. Fucking, you missed out on Friday, you missed out on Saturday, you missed out on Sunday. Well, Monday for 3 more fucking hours, so you better get that shit in. Dial it in right now. Go buy some Night Shift merch with the code THANKS. You'll get free U.S. shipping. This is the last day of deals. This is the last day I'm peddling this shit. But I'll still be peddling Night Shift merch because they're my official sponsor. With no further ado, I got to bring to you the man that has been in the biz since 1994. He understands what wrestling is all about. He's a Hood Slam veteran. I saw him for the first time at UGWA, and he's running with a crew of some bad motherfuckers doing some very fucking violent angles that are equally entertaining as they are violent. I bring to you Doc Atrocity.
For real, what's going on? Die human scum.
Shit, man. Your fucking angles that you've been running lately are just savage. Fucking, I thought you were about to fucking cut open JD Slater's face and shit at the end of the last one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been having a blast working for UGWA. I've talked to Slash for the last couple of years, and I live about three hours away from San Jose, so we chatted, like, finding the right niche for it, and after we came out of the pandemic, I was like, hey man, I would really like to do something with you, and he's like, well, I have an opportunity. Let's see where it goes. And started out really simple with me doing commentary and managing Christina Von Erie, who's a good friend of mine and longtime associate. And from there, it turned into the whole graveyard shift angle, which is, I always say that the cult gimmick has been done in wrestling 1,000 times, but I don't think it's been done well since, like, Kevin Sullivan did it in Florida back in, like, the 80s. So I'm trying to kind of bring that era back with, like, the kind of wrestling cult gimmick. I think especially with, like, the Bray Wyatt stuff, I always felt like the major wrestling promotions liked the idea of kind of cult activity, but they didn't really want to truly embrace it because it is legitimately freaky to a lot of people. So it's one of those things, like, pro wrestling likes to push the envelope, but it doesn't like to push it too far. Everybody likes to pretend like they're like a psychopath, but nobody ever really tries to kill anybody, even in a deathmatch scenario. So I think that it's the same thing with the cult gimmick. Sometimes it's touched upon, but they're really gentle. They don't want to offend anybody, and religion is still something that offends people, cult or mainstream religion otherwise. So doing the graveyard shift gimmick is really like, I'm trying to do a pro wrestling version of the Manson family proper, without it being a exact duplication of the Manson family. That I know that, like, Ring of Honor's done that. I feel like Bray Wyatt was an attempt at doing that. I'm trying to do that, but on, like, a kind of comic booky, cartoonish, over the top level. And I think we're over. I honestly feel like, just with having done, like, 3 or 4 shows with the crew and the angles we've been working, we get some pretty hot reactions out of the audience in San Jose. And I appreciate that, because I've always said, first and foremost in this business, I'm a storyteller. I'm not a worker. I'm not a workhorse. I'm not a technical wrestler. I'm not a chain wrestler. I'm not one of those guys that's going to go out there and do 100 spots at 1,000 miles an hour ever. Yeah. I wasn't when I was in my prime, and I'm certainly not going to now that I'm 49 years old. I'm a storyteller. I want to tell stories, and I think professional wrestling is an incredible stage for telling stories, for a bunch of reasons. And the fact that I'm still doing that now in a completely different promotion and getting it over, It makes me feel like I still have something to offer the business, and that's why I'm still around.
Yeah, it's, one thing I really like about when the graveyard shift comes out is the unpredictability of what the fuck's gonna happen this time. Like at the last event, you blew some fire, and I was like, what the, like, it's just unexpected. Like, you guys are always doing some crazy shit. Like, I started to like think I was gonna know what was gonna happen, and then some off the wall shit happens, and it's totally crazy. I brought my buddy to this most recent event. It was his first wrestling event he's ever been to. Totally, he wasn't a fan of wrestling at all prior. I tried to get him to come previously, and he's like, nah, it's not my thing, not my thing. And I was like, nah, dude, like, just check it out. You're gonna see this shit, and you're gonna get captivated. And from the first match, of course, he's fucking captivated. When you're right there, and there's so much stuff going on too, like, I think that's what makes it even more special. Just being so close to the audience.
100%. That's actually that's the thing that makes it special. I actually backstage at that show, I was talking to I because I have a tendency, I talk a lot, and I love wrestling. I absolutely adore it. I love, like I said, the storytelling aspect of it. I love the psychological aspect of it, which is enormous. And so when I'm backstage, and particularly when I'm around younger wrestlers, I I like to share information. I like to share knowledge that was shared with me. I'm a firm believer that um, I had great teachers. I had really really incredibly generous teachers who were hard on me, but they also gave me this incredible gift of knowledge. And because they did it so well, I have an obligation to them to share that knowledge with the next generation, to keep the lineage alive, because they paved the road for us. So we have to keep paving the road. Otherwise, there's no fucking road. Um, and so I was kind of holding court as I do, and I was talking about how, like, there's literally countless hours of pro wrestling on like YouTube. It's free, it's right there, you can watch it on your phone. Doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to pay to go to ticket, you don't have to drive anywhere. So why wouldn't you just stay home and watch wrestling on the internet? And the reason is because that live experience of being in the audience is something completely different than what you see on a small screen.
Yeah.
What you see on the small screen is a like fraction of the reality of the experience of a pro wrestling show. And my point when I was telling them all this was that I feel that a lot of the younger workers sometimes they get caught up in the spot to spot choreography of a match, and like, now I do this, now I do this, now I do this, now I do this. And I feel like not only does it take the realism out of it, when you're doing that, you forget that there's an audience out there.
Yeah.
And that audience, that live audience right there, just matter of feet away from you, is that's when you can offer that experience that makes it better than just watching it on a little screen. Because now I can directly interact with members of the audience, and they not only feel like they're part of the show, like they're interacting with the show, but there's this emotional resonance when you're there live that you don't get otherwise. Like, I can be a heel, and I can draw this kind of energy out of somebody in a live setting where I can make them suspend their disbelief for a fraction of a second. I'm not a guy in a mask pretending to be, this super villain character. For a fraction of a second, I'm they hate me more than anything else.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hi. My dogs are here.
Right on.
Yeah, my other one's in his kennel. But yeah, there's this connection that you can make that is super emotionally charged at a live wrestling show, that you just can't be replicated. And whether you're a fan of professional wrestling or you're not a fan of professional wrestling, when you are placed in that environment where you're experiencing it live, you can't help but get drawn into it. You literally can't help but get drawn into it, especially if there's really engaging storytelling going on.
Yeah, it's nuts. I had at the last event, Journey Fatu came out in the very beginning against Kenny K, and fucking the intensity that fucking guy had on him, man. my heart started pounding. I was like, holy shit. I had like a fucking, in the crowd, a fucking adrenaline dump from just the intensity, you
Well,
know?
he comes from, I mean, that guy, his family has been in the business for like 3 or 4 generations. Like he's more so than the average guy getting into the wrestling business. He has that obligation to his mentors and his family that handed down that business to him, where he can't go out there and just be like, oh, I'm half-assing it. Maybe I want to be here, maybe I don't. I'm just feeling stuff out. He's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders being part of that family.
Yeah.
Um, when he goes out, and not to mention his brother is Jacob, who's like killing it in Major League Wrestling and all over the indies. I actually wrestled Journey when he was 15 years old, 14
Really?
or 15 years old. It was him and Rikishi and his dad, Tonga Kid, and it was me and Adam Thorstone and Lester the Legend, the Reno Scum, for Fog City Wrestling. And he was only 15 years old. And you could see the amount of pressure on his shoulders at that point. He was just a teenager, and he was like, oh, man, like, I'm coming out here and everybody's blowing up because I got my uncle with me. I got my dad with me. And, like, they're hot. They're draws. They're guys who've been to the top of the mountain and back. And then I didn't see him for, like, gosh, I guess like almost 10 years. I saw him again at the Ugwa show, and I was like, hey, Journey, I don't know if you remember me, but like we had a match back in the day when you were just a teenager. He was like, Jesus, I was just a young one back then. But like, that's the thing when you've been in like the wrestling business for fucking over 30 years, is that you literally, you see people come up and ascend to like the highest levels of the business. And there's something really cool about that, of just like watching these guys. Like, another example is Jungle Boy.
Oh yeah.
Also at a City show, and he was 13 and he was doing spots with a manager. It was just it wasn't even a match. It was more of like a kind of angle thing, but you could see the love in his eyes and how much he was into this. And, a lot of kids when they're teenagers are like, I want to be a wrestler, but then like you grow out of it. But Jack never grew out of it. Jack was about it since back then, and now he's one of the top. I would say he's probably, with Darby Allin, probably one of the top AEW developed stars that they have working for them right now. Not guys that like made their name somewhere else and came there,
Yeah.
but he's one of those guys that they've really brought up to the next level. MJF too.
Yeah, it's a trip. I've heard them say he's one of the four cornerstones. Just in commentating, I think Jim Ross said it one time. He was like one of the four cornerstones of AEW right now, and I was like, shit. He wrestled in Ugwa. It's it's fucking, everybody finds they build it up, and it's that passion that really takes you to the top. The passion, the initiative, being able to get over, and how much would you say that booking? Because I mean, good booking makes a good show, but how much would you say like there's just chances of being booked? Like the chance, how much would you say just fuck, I can't word this question properly. Would you say that it's like lucky booking that gets some people like to,
So I hear what you're saying.
yeah,
Like I get what you're saying. And like you have to look at like the odds first and foremost. You just literally have to look at the numbers, especially right now, because Ring of Honor no longer exists.
yeah,
WWE is letting people go right and left. AEW has a full roster. There's really not a lot of room right now. I don't see them signing a lot of people that are getting let go by the WWE, simply because they got a stacked roster right now. They can't afford to bring in some of those guys for what they're asking for right now. Maybe later on down the line they can. So right now there's like literally, if you look at the landscape in the United States, there's maybe 500 full-time wrestling spots available out there. at any given time. Right now, that's pretty accurate. It might be off a little bit. There's literally 100 times that many indie wrestlers out there.
Yeah.
So the odds are not in your favor, just from a ratio idea of getting signed, particularly on well, not so much anymore. Up until I would say the last, 5 or 6 years being on the West Coast, that was a severe handicap. That wasn't going to work to your advantage. There were a lot of talents on the West Coast that just got passed up because they were too far away from where all the majors were located, and nobody wanted to fly you out from California. It was expensive and kind of considered a hassle. But that's changed, I'd say, in the last 5 or 6 years, because I've seen so many people from the West Coast that have gotten signed to the majors. So a lot of it is luck. But a lot of it is having a particular amount of talent in the ring to go out there and put on a show, no matter where you go, no matter who you're booked against, no matter the situation, that you can adapt to it, put on a good show in case that there is the right exposure out there. There is somebody looking at you that's going to see, oh, look at that. Or even like you're going to get enough solid matches on the internet where somebody's going to notice this guy's consistent. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of who we're putting him in the ring with, regardless of this, that, or the other thing, I'm seeing consistent performances all the way through. So it's really a matter. Luck obviously has a lot to do with it. Good booking helps, but good booking isn't what gets wrestlers signed, right?
Okay.
Because the majors don't care how you were booked on the indie scene. They're going to ignore that completely. They're going to repackage you 100%. They're going to make you into something completely different that they own, so that you don't really have any momentum when they inevitably release you. You have to go back to that thing you were doing before you were on TV, basically.
Yeah.
So luck has a lot to do with it, but consistency is really the biggest thing. The biggest thing is consistently putting on quality performances. And that's not to say like, oh, this person has 5-star matches every time they go out there. I think that's unrealistic, and I think that doesn't really matter. They want to see a consistency and an ability to perform and adapt regardless of the situation you're placed in. That's really going to be the biggest selling point of any young talent, is that they can take you and they can plug you into whatever creative comes up with for you.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer that adaptability is like the most important quality to have. Too many guys on the indie scene like get really settled into like, this is my gimmick, this is who I am, this is definitely it, and I'm got to protect my character, and I don't want to change. And ultimately that can be their downfall, because none of that matters once you get signed.
Yeah.
However, booking is the most important aspect on whether a promotion is successful or not. Not a particular individual wrestler, but like a promotion is 100% dependent on the booking and how it works out, because the booking will cover for quality of match shit, even character stuff to a particular extent. That's what's going to draw people when you're booking for a promotion. That's basically what you're trying to do, is like what you said there. I'm trying to hit you with enough stuff to make you go, oh shit, that was wild. I didn't expect half of that stuff. I got to come back next time they run a show to see what they're going to do next time. So it's this constant raising of the bar, right? And that can get really like, that can get dangerous, and it can get really like, weird. So instead of just constantly raising the bar for expectations, you write these stories, right? That automatically draw people like, oh fuck, this happened. Well, what's going to happen next week? It's so much like I know it's a cliche to say it's like a soap opera, but it's 100% like a soap opera. But it's also like a comic book. It's like any other episodic television show you watch. It's like, the Marvel movies is another example. Every episode they leave you on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
They leave you with something to go, well, fuck, now I have to come back and see what happens next show. And when you do a poor job of booking your stories, nobody cares, then they're not going to come back, and that's when your promotion dies. So it's this it's just like any other form of entertainment. Any other consistent form of entertainment where you're going to have a new episode every week or every month or whatever it may be. You have to engage people and keep them going. Well, fuck, now I got to know what's going to happen in the next one. It's like old serial, the serials that they would show before movies back in the 30s, the Buck Rogers and the Flash Gordons and all the cowboys and stuff like that. Every episode, they'd wrap up from what happened in the last one, and then they'd tell a little story, and then they end with like, oh shit, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
It's all of it is like really storytelling 101, and as like a good booker is a good writer. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's somebody who knows how to tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, but an end that is open enough to go into the next chapter.
So, as far as storytelling goes, and all the promotions that you've worked for, what would you say that have you been like most satisfied with the angles that you're running with and like the storylines that you've seen, and has that changed over time?
Definitely changed over time because there's been a couple. Early in my career, when I was working for Roland Alexander's All Pro Wrestling, and he put me as a manager mouthpiece to a guy named Max Justice. And we had a 4-year run with the APW Universal Heavyweight title where we were, without a shadow of a doubt, like just the most hated heels no matter where we went. And it was a different audience every time because we were doing house shows at high schools all over Northern California, but it wasn't the consistently same audience because we weren't, working the same house. It was a different audience every single time. So we had to go out there and earn that heel heat from a completely brand new audience every single time. And we did that consistently for 4 years. I took an enormous amount of pride in that. I did some things with Incredibly Strange Wrestling, which was a very alternative-oriented punk rock wrestling show in San Francisco in like the late 90s and the early 2000s. When I was doing some of the creative work for them that I'm proud of because I think it was particularly boundary pushing. I think it was, I think ISW was a company that took pride in kind of offending people.
Yeah.
Before the politically correct movement happened, it was a little more free form, and we did some stuff that definitely you couldn't do now. But I'm proud of that stuff. I'm proud of the fact that we went in front of a audience that thought it was like utterly unshockable, and we shocked the fuck out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take pride in that. But if I had to pick anything that I'm proud of from a creative standpoint, it would definitely be some of the creative work I've done with Hood Slam. Particularly the Baby Hood Slam storyline, which was kind of a storyline that got handed over to me because when I joined Hood Slam, there was already a storyline in progress where two of the Butabi brothers were they were in conflict because somebody had impregnated one of their girlfriends and they didn't know which one it was. And when I joined Hood Slam, Sheik literally came to me and she said, this is where we are in the story and I don't know where to go with it. And she's like, it's been like 10 months and she should have had the kid by now, but we don't know how to end this. And we haven't really answered who the baby was. And I was like super stoked because, I like to do like, not just in the wrestling match, but I like to do like a lot of special effects. Like I'm a big fan of like, horror movies and like war and like over the top special effects. Practical special effects are a big passion of mine. And you've heard the term, I'm sure, of a match being an abortion before.
Yeah.
When it's really bad, they say, "Oh, that match was just an absolute abortion." And I was like, Well, it seems like the only direction we can go with this storyline is to actually, like, I don't know, like, let's push the envelope and, be really bound. Let's do an actual abortion in the ring. And I think Sam was kind of like, oh, okay, like, how are you going to do that? And we actually had a gimmick with like a gurney, and there were pumps that were spraying amniotic fluid, and there was a sheet, so you couldn't see anything, but there was definitely fluids being shot out. And at some point, Doc Atrocity popped out from under the sheet holding a fetus. Um, and then
Fuck.
there was a third Butabi brother who was a zombie at this point, and the third Butabi brother ran out and fought with me over the fetus. So it turned out that the actual baby's dad was the third zombie, the third Butabi brother, the zombie brother. And then, but I had the baby, and it was in fact alive. It survived the abortion. So we did a whole story where I was trying to make the zombie a suitable father
Yeah.
for this two-headed mutant baby that I had attempted to abort but survived and was now raising as my own. And in the process, I'm not done. This is follow me here. So the baby, turns out aliens came, and they were like, the baby is the chosen one, and we have to take him and back to our home galaxy because he's like their god or something. And I was like, well, no, you can't do that because I'm trying to make this zombie a better father. So we had a match, and they were the intergalactic tag team titles champions, and we beat them, and we won the intergalactic tag team titles, the first intergalactic tag team titles, not the ones that you see in Hood Slam now. But we won those belts, and they were like straps, but there was like a green pod on it, like a pulsating, oozing green pod on top of it. And Doc Atrocity was immediately uncomfortable with I'm not feeling these pods. There's something in there. These belts aren't right. And then before we got a chance to vacate them, one of them hatched, and there was a face hugger inside of it, and it got the zombie Butabi in the face, and it impregnated his brain with alien jism. And so his brain was fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And he was dying. But I couldn't let him die because then the baby Hood Slam wouldn't have a dad. So I came up with the genius idea. Doc Atrocity came up with the genius idea of transplanting, because his brain was fucked up with alien jizz. So I was going to transplant another brain in there, but the only thing I had was gorilla. So I transplanted, and we did this live. We did the brain transplant live in the ring too.
Damn.
I transplanted the brain from a gorilla into the zombie, which was successful, but that turned him into a gorilla zombie. And then we had a bunch of matches at that point for control of the baby Hood Slam, and that baby Hood Slam disappeared, so nobody really knows what happened to that. But so anyways, as you can tell, the storyline had all these twists and turns, right?
Yeah.
And it was completely over the top and like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
like fucking aliens and zombies and fucking fetuses and fucking gorillas and just like so much shit. And the reason I'm so proud of that was not only did like people love that angle, like I still get people who like that fucking love that shit, but there was a local Oakland weekly kind of entertainment newspaper around that time, and they did their year-end awards. And one of the awards they gave out was best theatrical production in the East Bay.
Yeah.
And it's the write-up was Hood Slam won the best theatrical production because of the baby Hood Slam storyline had so many twists and turns, and it was so epic and out there. It was far and above anything any theater company was doing in the area, and we did it on like no budget.
Yeah.
Which is I spent a lot of my own money to do that because I thought it would be rad. So it was a shoestring budget, but we had a budget. And yeah, I take a lot of pride in that because that storyline won me an award that didn't even have anything to do with professional wrestling. It was an award for good storytelling.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's what I pride myself on more than anything. Somebody was like, literally like, I don't care whether it was in a wrestling ring or on a stage or on a screen. That's a good fucking story right there. So yeah, that's probably the one thing from a creative standpoint that I'm most proud of. But like so many other things at Hood Slam too, because Dark Sheik was such a she trusted me so much Not always, but a lot of times she trusted me so much to just throw stuff at the wall. Really wild, crazy stuff, like time machines and dimensional portals, and like, I had an angle where we John Wilkes Booth came back through time to assassinate the commissioner of Hood Slam at one point, who was a Pink Panther. It was a guy in a giant furry Pink Panther gimmick. And when John Wilkes Booth came through and shot him, we had it rigged so that when he got shot, he bled strawberry quick milk. So pink strawberry milk was shooting out of him after he got shot, and unfortunately, the milk got all over the Pink Panther costume, and it got in there and like totally made it stink to all hell. So like, the guy who's in the Pink Panther outfit will like not get in that costume anymore because he says it's just rank as fuck, and he threw it out after. So, but it was, what a great visual, right? To have John Wilkes Booth come through a time machine and shoot the Pink Panther, and then like he bleeds strawberry milk. I think that shit's funny. I don't think the other people did too, because like they came back for more. That was a period where Hood Slam was going through like, we started early on in the baby Hood Slam gimmick. I think we were drawing 300, 400 people. And by the time we had got to the end of that storyline, we were like drawing 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And I can't take, there were a lot of reasons why we had that huge influx in attendance, but I definitely feel like that telling these really, wild, outlandish, you're not going to get this anywhere else storylines is not only what caused that attendance increase, but it's also what helped establish Hood Slam's identity, because I think even in my opinion, after there was a period where I wasn't working with Hood Slam for a while and I wasn't part of the creative, and I still watched it, but I felt like some of there was less storytelling, and it was more like, just a normal indie show where it's like, well, now this guy's wrestling this guy. And it was still great. There were great matches and everything was awesome. But like, I felt like there was this like kind of hole in the product, not just because I wasn't there, but because there was nobody that was really writing those stories. So those like really, really outlandish stories that I think a lot of people related to Hood Slam. That when they think of Hood Slam, they think of professional wrestling, but they also think, yeah, but that's that fucking weird pro wrestling. That's like where they really go balls out. And because of doing that really, really wild shit, and because Sheik had so much faith in me and trusted me to do that shit, even though, I'm sure she had her doubts about it. Not only did I think that helped kind of create Hood Slam's identity, but in 100% all honesty, I feel like we changed professional wrestling. I think that we showed the world, not just like the audience, but we showed the professional wrestling industry itself that you didn't have to take this shit so fucking seriously, that you could like plant your tongue firmly in your cheek and you could like tell comedy gimmicks and comedy stories and really wild, crazy shit. Because, after we did it, fucking everybody started doing that shit. Like WWE got a little fucking weird, and fucking, Matt and Jeff Hardy are doing weird stuff in their compound, and theatrical matches started being a thing. And I mean, fucking look at like Orange Cassidy is a fucking, that's a slam wet dream right there. There was a time period where we were bringing in not just wrestlers who were like, top prospects that could go out there and put on hell of a matches, but we were bringing in the guys who were like too weird to get over anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they would come to Oakland and the fucking fans would lose their minds. And then there were other times where we were bringing talent that was over everywhere they went, because they were in mainstream wrestling promotions, and they're like, hey, I'm a baby face and I high five and I kiss babies. And they came out and the Hood Slam crowd just fucking took a shit on them because they don't care about that. Like bring something more than that, like wrestle a fucking invisible man.
Yeah.
Then I'm impressed. They appreciate good wrestling, don't get me wrong, but like more often than not, they they want something a little extra.
Yeah.
We always had one worker there who was just like an amazing wrestler, right? We had Virgil Flynn the third, who was like, he was just Virgil Flynn. That's his name. That's who he was. That's his gimmick. There was no character. That's just who he was. And sadly, Virgil passed away a couple of years ago, and his spot will never be filled by anybody else. So that spot of like just a pure wrestler guy, we had that. We had the best one, and nobody else will ever fill those shoes again. So everybody else has got to be extra. You know what I mean? Sorry.
Yeah. I feel that, man. That's it's been a hell of a ride with Hood Slam, dude. You guys been putting on that show for a minute, and it's fucking it definitely sticks out. Like I fucking like I said during the pandemic, that was the first time I saw it. I got IWTV because I wanted to catch up on the angles that was going on. Because I actually, so what got me back into wrestling in general was WWE. Someone was like, "Yo, check this shit out." I checked it out, and I was like, "This is cool, but it's not the same wrestling I grew up watching." And I tried to get invested in it. I watched for a couple weeks, and then it just didn't make any sense to me, the storyline, the way it was going. I'm just like, I felt offended by it. So
yeah, it definitely insults your intelligence watching their product.
Yeah, it's like I just don't like a lot of the decisions they made. They had this cat named Otis in there who like really seemed like a really great character, and he was like the only guy I was really into. And then it seemed like they were pushing him, and then they just give him some weird angle that took him away from being someone that was going to be on top. And I was disappointed, so I went on IWTV because I found there was tons of indie wrestling, and Hood Slam was on there, so I checked it out. And the first match I saw, or first event I saw, you guys did like a Royal Rumble, and that was fucking some of the most entertaining shit I had ever seen. Like it was just hilarious too, like through the whole thing. And it's like, I feel like it changed the way that I watch wrestling and like what I go to see. Like now the only two types of wrestling I really can consume. I mean, I check out AEW sometimes because they're like, some of the angles are kind of funny. Like I like MJF, how he just comes out and talks shit every week and never wrestles anybody. It's hilarious to me, but
but he's not really a heel though either, because like the crowd eats up his gimmick 100%. Yeah. And they've got nothing but smiles on their face, and they're like they don't hate him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's kind of a tweener, like in the legitimate sense of the word, and that like he's totally doing a heel shtick, but his reaction is 100% babyface. Like they boo him, but they boo him with a big smile on their face. And I don't think anybody wants to stab MJF in out back.
Yeah, exactly. You know what you're gonna get when he comes out, and you're like, all right, cool. It's it's not fucking like you're
Guy's
genuinely
like total theater kid too. You can totally tell that he's just like a full on 100%. Probably a jock, but definitely a theater kid with the way he delivers. That's somebody that's been in front of the stage lights before, without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, it's like every week I'm like, what cheap heat is he gonna draw from these fucking people? Because that's what he goes straight for as soon as he comes out. I'm like, what's he gonna say about these motherfuckers? And
they eat it up.
Mm-hmm. But I can fall off. I miss an episode, and then I'm like, like
no big deal.
That's how it is for me. And it's like, for a production like that, but with the show like UGWA, I can't fucking miss anything that happens. Like what's going on with Hood Slam. I was so pissed I couldn't make it to this last Hood Slam event. I saw it was fucking crazy. 2,000 people showed up.
More than 2,000. 2,000 was our pre-sale. 2000 was our pre-sale, and there were definitely more people than that. There were literally, it was a 3-hour show, and I remember like waiting because I was in the main event, and I remember waiting to go out there. We were like, we were into hour 2 of the show, and there was a line around the block still of people trying to get into the show, like already like 2/3 of the way through it, and they were like still trying to get in.
God damn.
It was more like a festival than it was a wrestling show. It
Yeah.
felt like you were at like a big electronic music festival or something like that. And the energy off that crowd was unfucking believable, man.
Yeah. I
That's
saw.
the future of wrestling too. Doing those like big outdoor shows like that, like with this, we got a new variant out there,
Yeah.
and I feel like the kind of social distancing thing isn't going to be something that's going to end anytime really soon. So we got to suck it up, Buttercup, and get used to it. The idea of like doing shows in large enough areas where people can still social distance. Um, I think it's a future of wrestling. I think once again, Japan is way ahead of us because you look at like these big festival shows that they've been doing in Japan for years and years and years, and I think that's the way we're kind of going to be ultimately be headed ultimately in the future at some point.
Yeah, Japan's crazy too. They got a lot of crazy fucking promotions. I watch Freedoms over
Yes,
there. Holy shit, man! Like,
I'm a huge fan of like Hustle and DDT, all that stuff.
it's the with so with me, it's like, I was saying I like this like adult these adult storylines with wrestling, and then the other place I get my fix is just and it doesn't have to have any storyline, the fucking crazy death matches that are just going on all over the place. How do you feel about the current state of deathmatch wrestling, and and how have you seen it changed over the years?
So I've always had like really mixed feelings about deathmatch wrestling personally.
Yeah.
Um, like I understand the appeal 100%, but having been like on the other end of being inside the ring
Yeah.
and knowing what's entailed in a lot of that, um, it's you can't help but have your mixed feelings because there's guys in deathmatch wrestling who are fucking genius storytellers and they tell horror stories, you know?
Yeah.
They tell fucking they tell that horror porn shit, that fucking gore porn shit better than like, these guys are the Eli Roths and the Rob Zombies of pro wrestling in the way they tell their stories. Um, and they're talented and they understand the psychology of what they're doing and the deathmatch aspect of it is just a special effect. It's just a really convincing special effect
Yeah.
because it's pretty fucking real. Um, but on the flip side of that, I think that deathmatch wrestling and garbage wrestling, as it's referred to in Japan, and that's not a derogatory term. It's not like it's trash or anything. It's garbage wrestling because you use so much garbage in it. There's fucking trash can lids and shit like that. Um, I think a lot of times it's used as a crutch to hide a lack of either in ring ability or storytelling ability. I think a lot of times people that can't wrestle a match will hide behind a lot of that hardcore stuff. I think that's always been the way, right? And I'm guilty of that. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm as guilty of that. Only I generally don't do a lot of hardcore stuff. I just do a lot of really gimmicky stuff to hide my lack of talent. I don't hide behind a crimson mask. I hide behind a very well painted, special effect oriented mask. But beyond that, I feel like a lot of times deathmatch wrestling is done improperly because it's not really telling a story. There's no build. You'll see two guys come out there and like boom, light tube shot right out of the gate,
Yeah.
and then it just becomes like, what else can we do to fucking murder each other? And again, just like anything else, regardless of the style of wrestling, if you're not telling me an engaging story, I'm gonna lose interest really fast. That's not my thing. I'm here for you to tell me a good story, regardless of the format of your story. I'm open to whatever you want to do. But if you just come out there and you're like just throwing shit right and left and there's no rhyme or reason to it, there's no psychology, nobody's selling for anything, and it's just fucking blah, 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 blah. You know, it's I get bored really fast. Um, and also, um, on that subject, to me personally, there is nothing, there are few things in the world more depressing than watching two dudes cut each other open in a very slow, plodding manner in front of like 6 people.
Yeah.
That is just depressing as fuck. That, like, to me, that's like, do you have no self-respect? You know, like, you fucking just don't give a shit at that point. You know, like, those were the kids that, like, and I was one of those kids. You know, the kids that used to pay to give them a dime to eat worms back in the recess. Like, you know, I'm definitely one of those kids. But you fucking hopefully, ideally, you grow out of that at some point. You know, you see some of these guys performing in an open field in front of, like, you know, their immediate family, and they're just fucking just absolutely mutilating each other. And I'm like, for what? You know, like, I understand the reasoning and the mindset behind deathmatch wrestling, but like, at the end of the day, it's still a business. And if there's nobody there, then you didn't sell any tickets and you're not making any money. So why'd you fucking do that? You know,
Yeah.
I'm that's the one thing I'm really, 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 really adamant about is, um, you know, when I'm hired to do a match, whether it's as a wrestler or a manager or any capacity out there, and I pride myself on being able to do pretty much any job in the business. There's nothing I can't do, um, except probably have a 5-star match. But when I'm hired to do that, I expect the person to hire me to do their job as well. That person's a promoter, and their job is to sell tickets and to put asses in seats. And if they don't do their job and there's not people in the audience, it becomes increasingly harder for me to do my job, because I feed off of the energy of an audience. And I know there's guys out there that say, like, I don't care if there's 10 people or 10,000 people, I'm going to put 100% into it. But that's a nice sentiment, but it's also kind of impossible. You know, there's no way you can fucking put as much effort in front of 10 people as you do in front of 10,000 people. The energy you're getting off of all those people is indescribable.
Yeah.
And to think that you're going to get that same thing off of, like, you know, like 10 people in folding chairs in the front row is naive as fuck and just wholly unrealistic. Um, I Maybe I'm the exception to the rule, but I feed off the energy of big crowds. The more people there are in the audience, the better performance you're going to get out of me, 100%. So I'm a firm believer that like, I have a job to do, but just like any other employee, you have a job to, like, create a, like, good work environment for me.
Yeah.
And as a performer, a good work environment for me is a lot of people out in that audience. That's your job, you know, as a promoter. Like I expect you to be out there and, like, hustling. And that's one of the things I like about excuse me, about Slash and Ugwa. That guy fucking hustles his ass off.
Yeah.
Sheik, she hustles her ass off to get her name out there, you know. Um, and I'm kind of like you. I'm more geared towards, like I'm not really too attracted to doing family friendly wrestling shows. I don't mind working in front of kids. I like working in front of kids as Dr. Atrocity because I like to scare kids, and like, making kids cry is fun. But it's also not my chosen audience to perform in front of. I like performing in nightclubs. 21 over venues are definitely better, in my opinion, because you have more free reign to do whatever you want. You don't have to tone it down and watch your language and be careful about this, that, or the other thing, or pushing the envelope too far. And again, just my opinion, if you're working in a venue where they serve alcohol, that's just going to make your audience that much easier to engage with.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a social lubricant, and if your audience has had a couple of drinks in them, just comfortably, don't be that jerk who drinks too much and is a fucking piece of shit and I have to fight you after the match. Just, you know, if you just get, like, have a good time and have a few beers, then you're going to get more into the show, and those people are going to be nuts, and they're going to be louder, and they're going to be more interactive. So yeah, I prefer doing like 21 and over shows way more than I like doing, like, family friendly shows. They're just more fun.
Was Hood Slam the first time you worked at a promotion that was cool with like the crowd smoking bud, or is that always just been a thing? I mean, we're in California too, so like that shit's always like I've always fucking seen people busting out bud at damn near any event I've been at out here.
Yeah, but not at like wrestling shows. Like up until Hood Slam really did kind of break the boundary on that one, because there were always trust me, there was always a bunch of workers that were going to go out back and get high, right?
Yeah,
Because that's just the nature of the business. Trust me, I was there at every single one of those smoke sessions, um, but um, but it was not something that you were going to be doing at a lot of family friendly shows. That was going to be frowned upon. And even back in like the early 90s and the early 2000s, when I was working for Incredibly Strange Wrestling, and those were in nightclubs in San Francisco, um, uh, it was still, this was before legalization. This was still when like you could do what you wanted to do, but you had to keep it super low pro, and smoking in clubs was definitely frowned upon. So, if you lit up a joint at most wrestling shows back in the day, you probably get escorted out by security.
mm.
The fact that Sam Dark Sheik was so adamant when she started Hood Slam that she was like, no, we're definitely doing this because this is how I live my life. And like, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and tell these people they can't do it while I'm back doing it back here. And then the Oakland Metro was like, fuck it, we don't give a shit. But you got to remember, this is Oakland, and
Yeah.
Oakland has been a little bit more pushing the boundaries. I mean, they legalized fucking mushrooms in Oakland.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck. They had like billboards up in Oakland long before anybody else in Northern California did. Now you just see them everywhere. Um, so yeah, it's that was the first time I ever saw it so openly displayed. It was always behind the scenes and hush hush, but yeah, once I Hood Slam was like, fuck it, smoke a fucking blunt in the ring. I
Yeah.
remember one time I was managing at Hood Slam, I was sitting on the stage doing ball rips. Legit. It's fun.
That's yeah, that shit's crazy. Like it fucking my so when I first saw Sheik come out, for the first time at Ugwa, Sheik came out, did the spin, hit the blunt, and looked up, and I was like, holy shit. This is like the coolest fucking person here. Like I was just like, what the fuck? It was crazy, man. I felt like a little kid. And then
Right.
another a promo that Sheik cut on Dave Dutra at the second Ugwa I went to, I fucking cried because Sheik did that shit that you were talking about where she makes eye contact and she looked right at me when she was saying this shit. And I was like, oh my God, like this promo's so crazy. Everybody started the chant and it was like, it's like you ever like see some really cool shit in a movie and you kind of tear up like in like the end scene of like a fucking action
It,
film or something.
it resonates with you emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. What you just described there, that's actually an old wrestling trick. And like Jake the Snake Roberts taught it to me, is like you got all these people in the audience, right? And when you want to get something across as emotionally strong, you hone directly. You pick one person out in that audience, and you don't even have to really be able to see them, because I'm blind as a bat. If I don't have my glasses on, I can't see a whole hell of a lot. Um, you pick somebody out in that audience and you just fucking melt that one person into their chair, and you just hone the hell into them, and you just don't break that contact through the entire promo, and it has this effect of like spreading like a virus through the rest of the crowd, and it's a highly effective tool.
Yeah, it was insane, man. That was like, oh my God. From that, like the first time, I mean, the first event I already knew I was going to come back no matter what. But yeah, after that second time, I was like, holy crap. Like, it's so crazy. Like seeing Sheik wrestling in different promos too. Like, I've seen, or I mean, in different organizations too. Cause it's like, Sheik was only doing Hood Slam for hella long, huh? Like, while Hood Slam was going until the
No,
pandemic.
no, well, no. So she was doing a lot of like shows, but like outside of the Northern California area. Like she's doing a lot of shows for like 5cc up in like Washington. She's done stuff in Vegas. Um, when I was running when I first started doing the Baby Hood Slam gimmick, she was actually on tour in Japan.
Yeah.
Um, and there was like there was a summer when she basically left the business side of Hood Slam in the hands of one of the wrestlers, and put the creative control in my hands. And that's when I got, some would say, a little over the top with the booking, but it paid off because people remember that shit. And so she definitely performs like, I mean, she's with Game Changer now.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place. Like Game Changers, probably like, I'd say they're probably number four in the country right now as far as promotions are concerned. You know, obviously WWE is still in the lead. AEW is probably going to pass them up in the next 2 or 3 years, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because WWE is going to sell. They're going to sell to Disney or NBC or somebody like that. The McMahons are going to get out of the business, and then AEW is going to overtake them without a shadow of a doubt. Impact's kind of still limping along. I don't really even really see Impact as like a TV promotion. It's just like a high level indie at this point. But then you have Game Changer after that. And they're in like the number 4 position in the US right now. The fact that she's working their shows like all over the country, not only shows that like people are actually like appreciating the talent that she brings to the table, as far as a performer, but again, like she's one of those people that has a mind for the business. She understands how to connect with an audience through a promo. She understands how to tell a story in a match that, you know, is going to give you the payoff, but it's still going to leave an open end so that you come back and see more. Um, Seeing her get that kind of exposure is uh, it's fucking awesome. You know, there's been so many people that have come in and out of Hood Slam that have like kind of moved up to the next level. But to see her get the credit that she has coming to her is it's really fucking cool, man.
Yeah, it's a total trip. Like I was like, where has this person been for fucking, when I've been trying to watch some wrestling. And I asked Sheik too about being on why don't they put Hood Slam on TV? And Sheik was like, no, it really comes down to corporations that run the shit, and the stories that they want to do. Like she said, there's probably a team of fucking bigwigs right now planning how they're gonna do their own Hood Slam and put it on TV. Like it all comes down to money, and at the end of the day, with the business. And that, I just think that shit is so cool that the due recognition is coming, and that people are getting this taste for this fucking wrestling. Like the indies are awesome. I was in a Spaces on Twitter the other day with Nasty Leroy from he's from down south. I think he's in like Georgia, and he was wrestling for Game Changer, and then he got scouted by AEW, and he said he went there. He did like 2 episodes of AEW, and then now he's going back to Game Changer. And he was like, yeah, that was it. That was the penultimate goal, like was to get up there. But there was another wrestler that was there talking, and I forgot her name's Kai. I know her gimmick. She's like a witch. I forgot her like whole name. But she said she was talking about like GCW, or she's like, when you get high up in the indies and you're at a comfortable place, sometimes that is the best place to be, because you go up there, if you do go up to the top, if they don't know exactly how they're going to use you, or you aren't able to do exactly what they want, then it can it's like you're not just wasting time, but you can get booked over and over again to lose, and you're just jobbing, while you're up there. And then
your stock value goes down when that happens. Because
exactly.
if they see you on TV as a jobber, then they're like, well, if I'm going to bring you in, you're going to do the job because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Um, it's always amusing to me when I see people who go, they get used on one of the majors for a short run, and they're not. They're doing the job, and I say that with no disrespect, because I don't mean jobbers, and there's no negative connotation when I say that.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to that in a second. But they do that, and then they're out on the indie scene again, and they want to get booked strong. And it's like, how am I going to book you strong when people only saw you booked poorly for the last 6 to 9 months or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
The reason I want to just reiterate, I never use the term jobber in a negative connotation because there's nothing negative about doing the job. Okay. Um, yes, you can lose your stock with a mainstream audience if they start to get you develop that reputation as that's what you do, right? But I'm also a firm believer that, like, if you're worried that you can't get your heat back because you did the job, then you're probably not very good. I can honestly say in the 32 years I've been wrestling, I've won maybe 20% of my matches. 80% of my matches I've lost. And I never once lost my heat. I can put anybody over and I can still come back strong because I control that. That's me. I know how to get my heat back.
Yeah.
So guys that are super, that's like another reason why I'm annoyed by people that are super protective of their character. Oh, I can't do the job because this, that, or the other thing. No excuses. If you can't do the fucking job, then why are you here? I need you to do the job eventually.
Yeah.
You're not fucking Goldberg.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Not everybody's fucking Goldberg, man.
So sooner or later, you want me to drag this out so it hurts more when you do it? That's dumb.
Exactly.
So the idea of being a jobber is not a bad thing. Jobbers have a very, very important part of the business. They make guys look like superstars. You can't have a superstar without jobbers.
Yeah.
Jobbers are guys who make this dude look awesome. The Dwayne Gills and the Mulkey brothers and those guys are like, they're the fucking spine of the business. They're the ones that keep it running. They don't get all the notoriety. They don't get t-shirts. They don't get royalties. They don't get signed to long-term contracts. But they're the ones that made all those guys who went on to be legends look like legends because they make look fucking awesome, and that's a hard job. Because you're gonna get the shit kicked out of you and you have to make it look awesome at the same time. The guys who did that, right? The guys who made their ass whooping, their job matches look fucking devastating. Nothing but respect for those guys, right? Those dudes deserve so much more respect and admiration than they're given. And the fact that the term jobber has become a negative connotation thing now, oh, you're just a loser. First of all, it's a fucking choreographed, predetermined outcome sport. There are no winners or losers at the end of the day. There's just characters that are booked to go in one direction and other ones that are booked to go other directions. So it's not a negative thing. It's like being, I always use this analogy when people go well, I don't think my character should do the job in this show. And I go, well, okay, imagine you're an actor and you're doing a movie and you are looking through the script and you go up to the director and you go, I see here on page 37 that my character's supposed to die, but I just don't feel like my character would die yet. I feel like my character would live to the end. And unless you're a major actor, that director is going to go, okay, thank you very much. You're fucking fired.
Yeah.
And they replace you, right, with somebody who wants to do what was asked of them.
Exactly.
So this idea of oh, I think I'm going to change the booking, just to appease my ego. That's fucking bullshit. Right now, that's not to say I haven't changed booking. There's been many times where I've gone this doesn't make sense. This is a dumb payoff to the story. And if we do it this other way, then we can come back next month and we can make more money because we draw this thing out more and it makes more sense because it's more engaging that way. But that's based strictly on business. That's not to feed my ego because, like I said, I don't give a fuck who I put over. That's to let's make more money. Let's sell more tickets. Let's engage more people in this product. So it all comes down to just a logical approach to it rather than an emotional approach to it. And I'm a firm believer that a lot of young wrestlers have a very unhealthy emotional attachment to their character. I don't want my guy to lose because my character is awesome as fuck, bro.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, but that's what you're hired to do,
Yeah. They become marks for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. big time mics for themselves, and they start to blur that area between like the reality of who they are and this character that they've created for themselves. And like you said before, like ultimately, at the end of the day, like if you decide you want to go to that next level and you want to go to one of the majors, they're just going to take all that away from you.
Yeah.
They're going to repackage you in some wonky weird thing that you either embrace and make work for you, or you end up like Karrion Kross or the Red Rooster. You have some ridiculous gimmick. You can tell exactly how uncomfortable and how much that person doesn't like that gimmick, and it doesn't work. You know, people always talk about the Red Rooster as being like one of the worst gimmicks of all time, and I totally 100% disagree. I think that gimmick could have totally gotten over if the right person had been put in that gimmick. If somebody came out there and they're like, I'm the cock of the walk, I'm the biggest rooster in the yard, and they had that fucking cocky feel to them, and like they embraced it, that gimmick would have totally gotten over. But Terry Taylor hated that fucking gimmick. You could tell he hated the fucking gimmick, and it died a fucking ugly death because like nobody gave a fuck because he didn't give a fuck. And I feel the same way about Karrion Kross. They brought him out in that stupid gladiator fucking Lord Humongous costume, and like, yeah, it was fucking dumb, you know. But like, what did you expect? It's WWE. Almost every decision they make is blatantly dumb. You embrace it. You become that big monster gladiator Lord Humongous character, and you make it work. But instead, he looked uncomfortable. He looked awkward. You could tell he hated being out there. So that's like like you said before about like sometimes the best place you can be is like at that top level at the indies, because you're making, you're not, I wouldn't go so far as to say you're making enough money to like live the high life, but you're making enough money to get by.
Yeah.
And you're in control of your character. You get to be the character that you created for yourself. You get to have some input on where that character goes because you're on the indie level, and you can be like, hey, that doesn't make sense, but what if we did it this way to make more money? Once you move up to that next echelon, you really lose a lot of the control. You know, it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
And fucked up because like they're going to, and I know you've heard this 1,000 times, but they're going to call you an independent contractor, right? Which is bullshit. You're a fucking contracted employee. You can't work for anybody
anywhere else.
You know, it's the fact that Vince McMahon has been getting away with that fucking nonsense for this long is absolutely 100% unbelievable. Dude should be in prison for that alone. That's just such a blatant, like, labor law, like, complete bypass. It's ridiculous. And these people are on television.
They can't even stream on fucking Twitch or whatever, you know.
They'll shut you down.
Anything.
And then on the other side of the coin, the fact that professional wrestlers aren't qualified for SAG, the Stage Actors Guild union, absolutely fucking should. Professional wrestling should be unionized, especially at that highest level, because they are performers, they are actors, they're on television every fucking week. And not only that, they do their own fucking stunts. Nobody else in the fucking entertainment business does that.
Yeah.
They are, without a shadow of doubt, like incredibly versatile performers, more so than just somebody who goes out there and reads a script and just fucking emotes, you know? Because when it comes time for the fight scene, they have stunt doubles that step in, you know? Pro wrestlers should either be in the Stage Actors Guild, not all of them, not on the indie level, you know, but at a particular level, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. Because that would keep stuff like what's going on in the WWE with their independent contractor bullshit to be happening, but also because like there should be a pension fund for wrestlers. Do you know how many people I know that like, you know, they quit wrestling, their bodies are beat up, so they can't do a whole lot from an employment standpoint.
Yeah.
And you know who cares? Nobody. You know, nobody cares. They're left to fend for themselves. Thank God they've got GoFundMe accounts at this point.
Yeah.
You know,
I looked at
that's another reason why, like, you know, I've always, my whole entire career, I've really tried to embrace the idea of working smart rather than working hard. For a couple of reasons. First of all, like, I don't want to break down my body. I'm 49 years old. I've got a lot of injuries. There's a lot that I can't do. I don't want to make that any worse. You know, there was a time period in my career where I felt invincible and nothing was ever going to hurt me. And that was bullshit. I feel it now. I don't want to make that worse. And also, like, if you just look at the history of professional wrestling, the guys who really made the most money in this business were the guys who worked smart.
Yeah.
The Dusty Rhodes and the Hulk Hogans and the Rocks, those guys, the Ravens, the guys that went out there and cut promos that engaged the crowd and didn't do a whole lot, but everything they meant something. They're ultimately the ones that are most successful in this business, because pro wrestling is about selling the sizzle, not the steak. You know, it's great if the steak's there, but you're selling that sizzle, man. That's what it's all about. And yeah, I just I don't want to end up being one of those guys. Somebody's got to change their diapers when they're 65 years old. You know.
Yeah, man, that shit's crazy. Fucking MMA too, you know, those
Oh
motherfuckers.
yeah.
Especially like I seen who was it like. You look at their old champions and shit, and it's like, oh, you would think that Mark Coleman would have some sort of money that he'd be getting now, and he got a GoFundMe for some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of these guys, they just took tons of KOs, and it's crazy because it's like, you know, I look at wrestling too, and it's like, dude, that is like MMA fighters. They may get, you know, concussed at a max like 2 times a year, but with the fucking amount of bookings that wrestlers go through and the frequency of that type of shit happening, whether it's minor or just built up, you know, it's like that. There has to be some sort of pension or something to, you know, pay them off with at the fucking end.
There should be. There's not. It's unfortunate. But like, yeah, concussions are an unfortunate reality of pro wrestling. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, there's some things that are going to happen if you get into wrestling and you stick around for a little while. You're going to get concussed. You're going to get jaw jacked every now and then. You know, some of those punches are going to connect.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna you know, you're gonna get the wind knocked out of you. You're probably gonna bite your tongue more than a few times before you learn how to get it out of your mouth. But there's some things that are just a reality of getting into this business. I personally had 8 acknowledged concussions that have been medically acknowledged, and I know there's more than that. Those are just the ones that I saw a doctor for, and I take that very seriously now. I didn't always. There was a time period in the business where, like, you know, unprotected chair shots were a badge of honor. It was, you were going to get high-fived by the boys backstage if you didn't put your hands up. And that had enough, oddly enough, that had enough value to some of us that we would go out there and take it.
Yeah.
I learned real fast that I didn't like unprotected chair shots because that shit fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And the first time I realized that was Crash Holly. Do you remember Crash Holly?
Yeah.
Crash, before he went to the WWE, he wrestled for All Pro Wrestling as Leprechaun Aaron O'Grady. And then he went and did the Crash gimmick in the WWE. And eventually, when he got released, he came back and did a couple of spot shows for All Pro Wrestling, because that was, you know, his original promotion. That's where he trained and everything. And he did a run-in in a match that I was involved in, and fucking Crash blasted me with that chair so fucking hard. I'm never going to let that happen to me ever again.
Yeah.
But, you know, he came up in the Attitude Era in the WWE. When they, you know, this is the time period when Rock and Mankind had that match with the handcuffs and like the fucking 17 chair shots or whatever it was, where like it was a badge of honor to try to brain the fuck out of a guy with a chair, you know? I think we're all a lot smarter about that now.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Well, shit, growing up, I used to do taekwondo. I used to do fucking play football too. And it's like, oh, you get your bell rung. That's what it used to be. That's what we used to say. Oh yeah, you get your bell rung.
Stop the fucking game. You know, now they stop the whole fucking game. So I'm glad that they're taking more precautions about it. But you know, the truth of the matter is like things like concussions they have long-term side effects. You don't see them right away.
Yeah.
You can see them 20, 30 years down the line. So even though we've changed the way we approach stuff like that, we're still going to see the repercussions of that over the next 10, 20 years with guys that are going to, they're not going to be operating
Yeah.
upstairs as well as they could be, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a damn shame, man.
And there won't be any pension fund to like help them out, which is really sad.
Yeah, fuck, man.
Anyways, that's
Yeah,
enough of that
I know
depressing.
that was dark as fuck. We went to a
Yeah.
dark place. Well, we had to go to a dark place. We got Doc motherfucking Atrocity in the building, everybody.
You got to cover all aspects from the dark to the light, and everything in between. That's kind of like the beauty of professional wrestling, is that it's like it's a really interesting genre of entertainment, because usually most forms of entertainment are like, I'm a comedy, I'm a horror movie, I'm an action movie, I'm a fucking feel good happy movie, right? And they really focus in on that one kind of emotional response out of the audience. And professional wrestling doesn't do that. Professional wrestling tries to, like, a good wrestling show anyways, will try to tap into like every aspect of like that emotional spectrum.
Yeah.
We're going to have that comedy gimmick that's going to make you laugh, right? And then we're going to have the heel character that just pisses you the fuck off, right? And I just fucking hate that guy so much. And then you're going to have the baby face where you're like, fuck yeah, I feel good, I'm happy about this shit, right? And then you have the fucking that wild brawl or death match where you're like, fuck, I hope everybody's okay, because these motherfuckers are trying to murder each other. So you get this real gambit of emotional responses in like a 3-hour performance. And um, you don't get that a lot of other places. A
Yeah.
lot of other things, they like focus in on one response, and that's it. And that's why pro wrestling is it's like a 3-ring circus. If you don't like the lion act, then here's the fucking acrobats. And if you don't like the lion act or the acrobats, well, then we got this dude shooting himself over out of a cannon. And then there's these clowns over here, So you have enough going on to where something's going to appeal to everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes a good wrestling show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Fucking oh shit. I brought my mom to Ugwa and yeah, she was like, this is interesting. And then she was like, she liked it. She was like, this is cool, but she didn't stay for the whole event. It got a little too crazy for her when KP came out.
Yeah, I can see that. You can see that.
Yeah, but my dad loved it. My dad was like, "Oh shit, these guys are crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, man, like, it was a trip."
Yeah, it's a trip having your parents experience that particular kind of form of entertainment. I have an interesting story. I was working for Incredibly Strange Wrestling at the time, and we were running out of the Fillmore in San Francisco, which is a big fucking venue, a historic venue. Then Jimi Hendrix has played there. And the reason we were able to run in such a large venue is because we always were headlined by like a big punk rock act, whether it was like Fear or Me First or the Gimme Gimmes or even the Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra anyways. And there was one show where my mom came to the show in San Francisco. And I didn't know she was coming. A security guard came to me backstage and said, "There's some lady outside that says she's your mom." I was like, "That's weird. I didn't think my mom was coming to the show." But I went to the back door, and my mom was there. She decided she was going to come to the show. So I got her in, and I got her upstairs into the balcony where there's like tables. And I was like, "Well, Mom, I'm going to set you up right here on the balcony at this little table, and I got to go get ready for my match. But when I'm done, I'll come back and we'll talk." And so I got ready for my match. I got changed, and I just went to go check on her and make sure she was okay. And I noticed she was sitting at the table talking to somebody. And the person she was talking to was Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys. So I said, "Oh, well, that's fucking cool. That's weird, but whatever." When I did my match, and I had like this brutal dog collar match, right? Where like the end spot was like, I got thrown over the top rope and I had the chain wrapped around my neck and my opponent was just yanking on it. And I'm like foaming at the mouth and my eyes rolling back into my head. And Literally had people like calling 911 because they thought it was legit. Um, the cops showed up actually.
Oh
Um,
shit.
yeah, it was funny. But we did this whole gimmick, this big brutal fucking match, and then it's over, and I go backstage, and there's my mom sitting at her table, and I go up and I go, "Hey, mom, what did you think of the match?" And she goes, "I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch the match at all. I was just really distracted. I was having this wonderful conversation with this really, really, really incredibly nice, intelligent young man." And I said, "Yeah, I saw that. You were talking to Jello Biafra." And she said, I don't know who that is, but he is just such a sweet man." And when I was 13 years old, I had bought Dead Kennedy's Frankenchrist, uh, which was a great album. But inside the album, there was there was this poster, right? And it was actually a painting by H.R. Giger. Um,
Yes.
that was it was a bunch of vaginal insertion occurring. It was a landscape of coitus, if you will, and then there was the DK in the center of it. And I got this and I pinned it up on my wall. And 13 years old, keep in mind, my mom saw that and lost her fucking mind. He tore it off the wall and was like, rah, 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 rah. Anyway, so, she just tells me she just had this wonderful conversation with this incredibly intelligent, nice man. And I'm like, yeah, it's Jello Biafra. And she goes, I don't know who that is. I go, well, that was a lead singer for the Dead Kennedys. And she goes, I don't know who that is. And I go, well, do you remember that poster I had on my wall? She said, vile dog. And I go, yeah, well, he made that. That man you were talking to made that poster. And she like didn't say anything. And then she was like, well, he was just incredibly intelligent when I talked to him and just the sweetest thing. So totally blew it off. But I'll never forget that. She's like watching my mom talk to the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys right before I went on to a wrestling show.
What a
And
trip.
that was one of those incredibly surreal moments that like happened all the fucking time at Incredibly Strange Wrestling, because it was a promotion that was run by Fat Records, which was Fat Mike from No Effects
Yeah.
record label. So we constantly had this influx of like people in the punk rock world who wanted to, oh, fucking pro wrestling, fuck yeah, I love pro wrestling, I grew up on that shit. So they want to get in the business. When we were on we did a tour to Europe for like a month and a half called Deconstruction. No, this was on Warped Tour. I'm sorry, I got my tours mixed up. We did Warped Tour one year, and one of the headlining bands was Rancid. And Lars Fredrickson and Tim Armstrong are fucking huge wrestling fans. Like they
Really?
fucking love pro wrestling. And so every time if we were performing and they didn't have a set, they would come out and like watch the wrestling, to the point where at one point Vampiro came on to one of the shows because he's friends with Lars and Tim. And they had one of our wrestlers interfere there. We had a wrestler called the Oi Boy who was like a Nazi skinhead character, and he came out on stage and interrupted Rancid's set just so that Vampiro could come out, kick his ass, and chokeslam him through a table in front of the crowd. So we had all these like really surreal moments where you were like, yeah, it's fun. You're on tour and you're wrestling, but then also you get these moments where you get to interact with like people you idolized as a teenager,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool when you get to do that in the wrestling world, when you're like, hey, I'm working with fucking Rikishi, or fucking I'm in a promo war with fucking Raven, or fucking whatever the case may be. But then it's also like completely different when you're like, I'm jaw jacking with the lead singer to Rancid, or that's fucking my mom's talking to the fucking lead singer of the Dead Kennedys. That shit's weird,
Yeah.
And I don't know, those are the moments in my career where I've looked back and I go, you couldn't write a book you couldn't write a piece of fiction this weird. It's impossible. This could only be real life. And if and when I do write that book, I guarantee people aren't going to believe half of it. It's going to be 100% true, but they won't believe it because it's just like, how did all this fucking shit happen? And it just fucking happened, you know?
That's fucking crazy. So, the book may be coming soon. Who plays you in the
It will
movie?
eventually it'll happen. It's just so hard because, like, you know, I feel like a book, like a memoirs, happens when you kind of done with
Yeah.
whatever it is you're doing, and I'm not done yet. I've still got a lot more in me to offer the business. I've got I feel like from a performer standpoint, I still have a lot more that I can offer the business. From a creative standpoint, I think that I've got a hell of a lot more that I can offer the business. And also from the standpoint of being like a positive influence backstage in the locker room to help like develop the younger talent, um, that's definitely something that I feel that I'm not done doing right now because there's some incredible, like outright incredible talent coming out of this area right now. And not to name drop anybody, but fucking Titus Alexander, the future franchise man.
Yeah.
Uh, I've known Titus since he was like 8 years old,
Yeah.
and he wanted to be a wrestler back then. He was a wrestler back then. I mean, like I remember him wrestling at like 12 years old, doing matches in front of the audience. Um, but like that kid, the world is his oyster. At this point. So there's all this incredible talent in the area, but they kind of have to be groomed. You know what I mean? They kind of have to be taught the way because they understand. And I'm not pinpointing anybody as particularly not Titus because his dad, Big Ugly, is one of the best minds in the business, and he definitely trained him well. But there's other people in that kind of generation of wrestlers that they've got it all as far as the moves. They understand, their spots are dead on, they're crisp, their ring awareness is really, really there. But the hardest part of the business to figure out is the psychology of it and figuring out how to get that emotional resonance out of people. It takes years and years to master that craft. And I think that's where I can really be a big benefit to independent wrestling right now is by kind of helping to establish that mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they need, man. I mean, that's what sticks in my fucking head when I leave, the emotions that I get when I fucking go, and
Yeah.
being pumped to see the people the next time. It's like, yeah, you can show me fucking, a 360 fucking pile driver off the fucking thing, but if somebody says some cool ass shit, I'm more likely to bring that up to someone else about the show.
Yeah, and I've said that 1,000 times. There's guys that they'll do those high spots that I can't do. I simply I physically am incapable of doing that. I cannot do an inverted backflip 360 off the top rope out onto the floor. But what I can do is I can cut a mean fucking promo. And if you listen to the reaction to that fucking high spot and you compare it to that punchline in my promo, same fucking reaction.
Yeah, you
Right?
get the pop.
Great reaction. Not saying they didn't get a great reaction. I'm not saying my reaction is better than theirs. I'm saying it's about the same. It's about equal usually. I didn't have to work that hard. I certainly didn't risk breaking my neck doing it. And I'm not saying don't do that because if you can, definitely do it, but do it at the right time.
Yeah.
Do it at the time when it means the most. And don't fucking do it every single time. There's this mentality that I've noticed with a lot of young wrestlers, like, I got to get my shit in, I got to do these are my spots I do. These are my spots. I got to do my spots in all my matches. To which I say, well, if I saw everything that you can do in this match, why should I come back and watch you again? Because you're just going to do the same fucking spots. I saw it all. You showed me every trick you're capable of the first time I watched you perform. So the next time I watch you perform and you do those same spots all over again, real quickly, I'm going to start to realize that that's all you got. give sparingly. Yes, come up with new shit constantly and develop new stuff, but like, don't do all your shit every fucking match you're in.
Yeah.
You're fucking yourself when you do that shit. These are these fundamental basics that like another one that I have a big problem with is I hear cats all the time backstage say, "I'm going out there to steal the show." I didn't ask you to steal the show. I booked the show a particular way because there's a build to it.
Yeah.
It's a song, right? I'm writing this song, and each note has to be in a particular place. When you go, I'm going to steal the fucking show. First of all, that's not your job. Your job is to just be the show. Second of all, like the guy in the first match tries to steal the show. So the guys in the second match try to one up that one. So the guys in the third match are going to one up that one. And it becomes this fucking constant pissing contest to see who can do more high risk, crazy fucking shit and quote unquote steal the show. Meanwhile, my tone for my booking is all fucked up because I've just got all these guys fucking, measuring their dicks against each other.
Yeah.
Nobody asked you to steal the show. I don't want you to come into my house and steal anything. Okay? I want you to come here and fucking be respectful, do what is asked of you. Therefore, I feel comfortable paying you the money that we agreed to because you did the fucking job I asked you to. And going above and beyond the Call of Duty is fine and all, but like it becomes this like progressive thing where it's like, just do the match, just go out there and take the 10 minutes that you're given and tell a good fucking story. Don't worry about stealing the show. Don't worry about like all eyes on me and fucking I gotta be the fucking best. It's a cooperative effort. Everybody has to do their part. All right. If I didn't book you to quote unquote steal the show, don't fucking steal my show. And unfortunately, I don't even think they do the. I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think it's a subconscious thing. But a lot of these young wrestlers are like, they're constantly going into business for themselves. They're thinking about, well, I got to do what's best for me. Meanwhile, I'm trying to put on a show with all these different moving pieces and all these different performers. And there's, like I said, there's a tone and there's a way that I've got it built. But I got this cat over here and this cat over here and this cat over here. And they're all going into business for themselves, thinking about what's best for them rather than what's best for like the whole of the product. I don't think it's malicious. I don't think it's like an arrogant fucking all me. I just don't think it's ever been explained to them that you're a cog in a machine.
Yeah.
That you have a role. And if you don't do that, then the whole machine breaks down. So these are the things that like I still feel that these are the lessons and the knowledge that I feel like I have to offer and kind of, smarten people up. Just because you're behind the curtain doesn't mean you're necessarily smartened up. And that's what I mean when I say like it takes years and years to really master the craft of the psychology of professional wrestling. There's a lot of cats who are in the business, have been in the business for years now. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but they still haven't been smartened up. They still haven't realized that the whole of the business is telling stories, emotional resonance, and at the end of the day, selling tickets and putting asses into seats. That's really the fundamentals of the whole thing, And once you lose track of that stuff starts to get a little wonky. So sometimes you need somebody to come along and remind you,
Yeah, it loses the magic, man. Like fucking, I heard I was talking to Phoenix Kid a while back and he was telling me about a booking that he did in some small place, and he said he was telling me about having too small of a crowd and they're not feeling it. It's really hard to get that, to start that excitement in the crowd. He said he was wrestling with an inexperienced wrestler. It was like an intergender match. She was like, I think, I forgot how many months he said. I think he said 1 year of experience or something, was very green. And he said, I did everything I could, man. He's like, I did a Death Valley driver. I told her tuck the head, did all this crazy spot, all the crazy things. So he's like, it's, with the seats, that makes hella sense. Cause it's like, you just gotta, you got to, it's like hypnotism, you know, you can hypnotize one person, then you can eventually get, you know, everybody. Oh, I think I'm all right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I was freezing up for a second right there. But
a little audio weirdness there.
but yeah, you know, you hypnotize one person, you can hypnotize everybody, and like that's how it goes down. The spots that you guys do, when you come out with the graveyard shift, pretty crazy, man. Like some of the stuff that I've seen, but it, you know, you do them sparingly and you make them mean something when they do happen. You know, like
Yeah.
that tension that you built at the end of the last one when, you know, you said he disappointed you on your birthday. I was
Mhm.
like, oh man, it really was your birthday too, right?
It was my birthday weekend. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Happy birthday too, man.
Thank you. Thank you. 49, which again, like I started wrestling. I started getting into pro wrestling like right out of high school. So that's like fucking, 30, 31 years that I've been doing this. And can honestly say like the first half of my career was me just learning my craft. It didn't click for me for like maybe the first 15 years. I think I had a affinity for it, but I don't think it really ever like really like, oh, I fucking get it until I had been doing this for like, over a decade at least. And that's it's the things like what you said with Phoenix about how like sometimes you can get any crowd into it, but it has to be a community effort.
Yeah.
It can't be just one match. You can't have you can't have a card of like 6 awful fucking matches and then expect the 7th match to pick that up, right? Like everybody's got to do their part. um Otherwise you're just setting up your coworkers for disappointment. And it's it's a weird business, and it's hard because, like I said, there are so many moving parts when you're looking at it from a creative standpoint of um, putting a show together, and you have to write something, and you have to have a reason and like a catalyst and a storyline for every match on the card. And there's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing lazier than a booker who goes, I don't care, go out there and just have a match, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing in the world. And I know in their mind they're going like, I'm giving my friends freedom, I'm giving them this free reign to do whatever they want. No, you're not. You're fucking lazy. Okay, you're fucking too lazy to do the fucking work to give them, put in enough effort to write them an engaging story, because they want that. Like wrestlers want to be told like, here's what you're doing, I got this great story that you're going to do. And if you write it well, even if they're on the like receiving end of it, you know who one of the most enthusiastic people I've worked with since I've been in UGWA is? You know who really is super enthusiastic about working? Bronson.
Yeah.
And what have I done to Bronson for the last 3 years?
Oh, I said it. I didn't want to say it to Slash because it was, but I don't like, he writes the story and shit. But I was like, man, I was wondering what the fuck did Bronson do to get fucked up every month like that? And then I seen him though in Vegas, and he had his comeuppance. He came back and with the dub.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that shit. It was a slow burn. It built up to that, but yeah, he fucking.
And that's not even a slow burn.
Yeah.
Like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We're just in like the beginning stages of a slow burn.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's a lot, and that's the thing that people a lot of forget is they go like, okay, well, here's our beginning and here's our middle and here's our end. So we got 3 shows to tell that story, right? You fucking pull that thing out for a fucking year. There's so many twists and turns that you can do in between stage 1, 2, and 3 before you get to that ending. You money on the table. You're leaving money on the table by not dragging it out as long as possible. And like I'm not going to spoil anything, but like watch what I do with Bronson over like the next, throughout 2022. We're going to tell a story, all right? Because like I said, he's incredibly enthusiastic. Whether he wins or loses, he knows I'm going to give him quality storytelling that he can sink his teeth into, right? He's going to be able to fucking, I know how to feel for this story,
Yeah.
right? Because it's familiar. So I know how to feel and I know how to tell that story. Um, and that's my point, is that like you have to write a story for every single match. And if you have good players on your team, then they're good. They're going to feed off of that. Their egos aren't going to get in the way of like, oh, I really feel like I should win this one, or blah, blah, blah. They're going to, oh, yeah, that makes sense, because then we can come back next month and we can do this one. And that builds their enthusiasm, right? And the more enthusiastic they are about performing, that shit is contagious as fuck to the audience. Before our last match, I was talking to my team. I was talking to the Graveyard Shift, and particularly Christina and Rob Shit, because they're like, they're the ones with the most experience. They're the workhorses on my team, right?
Yeah.
And I told them, I'm like, I want you guys to be fucking wild out there. I want you to have like that wild look in your eyes. I want you to be like in the Lion King, and I'm Scar, and you're the hyenas, and by God, they came out there and they did just that.
Yeah.
They were fucking wilding it up. And like when the referees broke it up, when I was going after Slater with the tires, and Rob Shit's like, fuck that, you want me to fucking kick these referees ass? Referee off, Doc, let me do it, let me fuck them all up, right? That wasn't scripted.
Yeah.
That was him just embracing the character and going, fuck that, I just went through 3 fucking pro wrestlers, I'm gonna let these referees get in my way? No, I'm gonna fucking take them out. Meanwhile, I'm going, no, we're done here, right?
Yeah.
I've made my point. So I pulled back. I try to do that for the people that I work with. I try to do that with the people that I'm just on a show with. I try to get them jazzed up, and I try to get them enthusiastic. I'm in that mindset of that character, because I know that the more I can get them feeling it, the more they're fucking into it, the more they're like, yeah, I'm fucking all about this. That shit is going to it's going to read to the audience. The audience is going to feel that. It's going to be authentic. And that authenticity makes them care.
Yeah.
That authenticity makes them give a fuck who wins and who loses. Because I've seen so many matches in the last, couple of years where like they're fucking amazing, dude. The spots they're doing are fucking incredible. I couldn't do that in 1,000 years. Fucking athletic masterworks, right? But it's like watching a dance, or it's like watching a kung fu movie. It's this very well coordinated, choreographed exchange that could only happen if these people went over this 1,000 fucking times ahead of time, because there's no way this shit is happening impromptu. And I appreciate it for what it is, but at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck who wins. I really don't care who comes out on top, because these guys are incredible athletes and they're doing this good stuff, but they never bothered to engage me. They never said, this is the guy you're supposed to like and this is the guy you're supposed to hate. It's just 2 guys out there going toe to toe, spot for spot, and after they do things simultaneously, they're going to shake hands. And that's an interesting story every now and then, but when like all the matches are like that, I don't care, And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just, for me as an audience member, as for me as a fan of wrestling, I don't care, because I care when Earthquake fucking tried to squash Jake the Snake Roberts' snake,
Yeah.
I fucking gave a fuck about that. It wasn't good wrestling. They didn't do backflips. They don't mat wrestling. They were doing chain wrestling for fucking 20 minutes with exchanges and in and outs and all that fucking stuff. But it at least had an emotional resonance. And I think that's what's kind of lacking in professional wrestling today. And it's so easy to bring back. It's like, it costs you nothing. It's one of those things where it's just it's just been lost, and it's not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, you fucked up, you screwed up the business. It's our responsibility. At the end of the day, you can't be mad at the wrestlers today because the wrestlers from yesterday didn't bother to fucking teach them the right way.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, social media too, I feel like has a really big influence on that shit too, because it's like, I was hearing who was it talking about it? I think it was like fucking Mark Miro or some shit, and he said that he was like chilling in the back, and he was trying to. It might not have been Mark Miro. Is Mark Miro or Steve Blackman or some shit? And they were both. One of them said they go in the back after a match and shit, and they want to sit there and give like advice to the younger guys, and they don't give a shit because they got their Twitter and everyone said great match, you did a great job out there, and they're like, oh, well, I have all this fucking validation from all these people for a match that might have been shit.
Who don't really know the difference between a good match and a bad match.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, they certainly can't tell you how to make your match better. Like a Steve Blackman or Mark Marrow, no matter how you feel about them, those guys have been to the top of the mountain. They can definitely tell you tips to be better.
Yeah.
It was another thing that was brought up backstage at the Ugwa show is you go backstage and most locker rooms, you see a bunch of workers with their faces on their phones and their ears aren't open. They're not listening to like the veterans that are sharing information.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they're checking Twitter, or they're more drawn into this. Every time you're backstage at a wrestling show, you have an opportunity to learn. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes you're going to learn the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to learn the right thing to do. But you're always going to learn.
What's the worst advice you ever got from someone or a vet in wrestling? Like,
be honest with you, usually when I get fucking, I've been around for so long, it's been a long time since I've got bad advice. Or I got anything that's like going to come up to me and like
try to tell you. Yeah.
But like back in the day, I've never been a fan of negative reinforcement coaching. I think positive reinforcement coaching is highly more effective. I think with some individual mindsets, negative reinforcement coaching works for them. But I think for most people, lifting people up rather than breaking them down, you're gonna get more out of it. All right, you're gonna get more payoff out of lifting people up. But when I got into professional wrestling, that wasn't how things were done. It was the early era of the internet. So it was like AOL when I got into wrestling. Kayfabe was still 100% alive.
Yeah.
And a lot of the teachers a lot of the people that I worked with early on believed in negative reinforcement techniques when it came to coaching. They were constantly telling you how shit you were and everything that you did wrong. They never told you when you were doing something right. They only told you when they were doing something wrong. And they were trying to break you down with the mentality being that they're hardening steel, right? We're going to hammer you and hammer you and hammer you and hammer you until you're like, you either quit or you're tough enough to take this shit. Because that's the way the business was up until then, right? That's why you got ribbed. That's why you fucking were a young boy carrying other people's bags. That's why you fucking, it was all about breaking you down, breaking your ego, right? Which had its beneficial, it worked because, you had these guys who were eventually portraying superstars, understanding that they're just fucking workers, right? But it was also pretty abusive. It was pretty fucking toxic. And I had a lot of, I'm not going to name names, but I had people that were involved in my developmental as a wrestler that told me I was never going to be jack shit because I'm 6'1". I've always been between 230 to 260. But I was told if I didn't do steroids, I wasn't going to make it in this business.
Yeah.
And that didn't really, to be honest with you, that didn't fuck me up because I didn't really want to. I never had aspirations to go to the WWF. I never wanted that. It just didn't seem like a fun job to me. It seemed like a really kind of shitty job to me. And then from everybody I knew that worked there and came back, their experiences weren't particularly great. It's like when I did that thing that I wanted to do since I was a kid. But you know what? Like when I was a kid, I thought working at Toys R Us was the coolest job in the world.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's just a shitty fucking job.
Yeah.
So, and the WWE is kind of like that. As a kid, you're like, superstar, action figures, T-shirts, blah, blah, blah. But then you're on the fucking road and you realize that you have to pay for all this shit yourself. And guess what? Creative doesn't have anything for you. So guess what? You get to go home for fucking 6 months and we're probably going to release you because once creative doesn't have anything for you, it's very rare that they figure it out. It's not a great fucking job. You
Yeah.
know, it's not a great fucking job. I get it. It was your fucking passion as a kid, but like the reality is different than the fantasy. I never had any aspirations for that. So when people were telling me, oh, you're never going to make it in this business if you don't do the juice kid, cool. I don't want that. So I'm not really upset about it. I like the indies.
Yeah.
I've always liked the indies. I like the control I have over my character. I like the influence I have with the creative. I like the fact that I pick and choose where I want to work, right?
Yeah.
And because I've always said that there's three reasons to do a show. You're either getting paid really well, it's really good exposure, and the right eyes are on you, or you're just having a whole hell of a lot of fun, right? I get paid pretty damn well for the indies, for where I work. It's not great. I'm not making a living wrestling, nor have I ever, nor do I really expect to. I'm a tattoo artist. That's my full-time job, right? Exposure, I don't give a fuck about because I'm not trying to get it go anywhere. You know, I'm not trying to get signed to WWE or AEW or even Impact. I don't have any interest in that whatsoever. So really, the only third factor for me is fun.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters to me. If I'm having fun, if I'm not having fun, I'm not gonna fucking be there. I'm just not gonna take the booking. You
Yeah.
know.
What's the
Uh,
point?
but if it's a situation where I came to your show, I liked what you had to offer, or I see a lot of potential in it, I think there's something here. My friends are here. I get to be with people I care about and I've worked with. Yeah, then we can do business. You know, and as far as my payoffs go, like I said, I get like for the most part I get paid pretty well. But like I'll work with you if you make it fun. That's got a lot more value quoting to me than like how much money you put in my pocket at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, it's like, yeah, like doing what you love, and getting any sort of getting paid anything is a bonus. Like me with this show, man, I do it because I fucking love to talk to people, and
Yeah,
I'm just grateful people want to talk, and then two, I got like a $5 donation one time. I was like, holy shit, like
I'm
that.
fucking. I made it.
Yeah, right. Like that's how it felt, and I was just like, "Fuck, man! Like that's cool." I'd rather have someone just watch, or be able to, hear the stories that people tell on here, you
Sure.
know, and
And
fucking
to that effect, like as far as making money goes, I always tell people like, uh, become a multi-purpose tool in this business. Okay, when I worked for All Pro Wrestling, and I was just a manager there. Occasionally, I would put on a mask and I would do a job, but for the most part, I was a mouthpiece manager at All Pro Wrestling. Um, I can say this now, but nobody knew it at the time. I was getting paid better than any of the wrestlers
yeah,
because I produced the souvenir programs. I physically built the entire and wrote and did all the layout information for the souvenir programs that they sold at every show, right? So I was making more money than any of the wrestlers simply by being a manager and offering this other and being this other tool,
yeah,
right? So I always tell people like learn every aspect of the business. It's great that you know how to wrestle. It's great that you know how to put on a performance, right? But if they need an announcer, could you be an announcer? Could you ref? Do you know how to break down and set up a ring? Can you book a show? Can you make a poster for a show? Can you design a t-shirt? Can you handle security? Do you know every single aspect of this business? Become a multifaceted tool because that raises your value when you become, is like I was saying before about being adaptive, right? Being able to adapt to whatever situation is available to you. The more skills you bring to the table, the more when they go, oh shit, we need somebody to do this, you go, me, I can do that. I can be that guy. So that's the best advice that I could give to any aspiring pro wrestler, anybody that wants to break into the wrestling business. Learn everything about the business. Do your homework, watch matches, study the business, learn all that stuff, but learn the way the machine works. Learn how each component in the machine does its job to make up the one big engine that puts on a show. Because that's how you become invaluable.
You heard it here first, everybody. Anybody trying to get into the business, become that multifaceted tool. That's some. I've never heard that advice, and I think that's fucking gold right there. I gotta clip that and put that on Twitter for people, just so they,
Absolutely.
yeah, so they can see that. That was, damn, that's some gold right here, man. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm about to cut it. Fucking man, I gotta have you on again in the future. It like I
100%.
there's so much. I feel like there's so much more we gotta talk about. Um,
Yeah, we just tipped the tip of the iceberg there.
yeah, fuck, man. Anything you want to promote right now that you're working with? You're with Ugwa right now with the Graveyard Shift. Are there any other projects? I haven't heard any news about the next Hood Slam too. If
Well, there are there's potentially a December Hood Slam show in San Francisco. That it still hasn't been 100% nailed down, but probably around, I believe it's either the 18th or the 19th of December. There is a potential Hood Slam show in San Francisco. Again, don't quote me on that because, like I said, all the T's haven't been crossed and all the I's haven't been dotted. Um, Obviously, Ugwa is something that I would like to continue to be part of long term. There's also in December, I'm doing a benefit show for Brooke Havoc, who's a wrestler who actually trained with Cody Rhodes at the Nightmare Factory. She's originally from San Jose, and she had an injury happen in a match recently, and they're running a benefit show for her, which I will be a part of. And then there is also there's a few small indies in Sacramento, particularly Next Level Pro Wrestling and Total Wrestling Federation that runs out of the Colonial in Sacramento, which used to be the Supreme Pro Wrestling stomping grounds that I'm dipping my toe into. They're local, they're close to me, and I'm kind of at this point in my career where I'm kind of getting back into the swing of things a little bit. So we're going to test those out and see whether they're a good fit or not. And like trying on a pair of pants, you know? So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike.
hell yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And and I did want to say, because you were talking about the juice, I did want to bring this up. That was something I totally wanted to bring up the entire night, and I'm fucking glad you never fuck with that shit,
Yeah.
because that guarantee extended your career by at least fucking 10 to fucking 20 years,
Well,
man. You
yeah,
know?
people don't believe I'm 49 years old, but like if I had gone on steroids and I had a post anabolic body, definitely I'd look every year I am. So yeah, that was not something that was ever on the table as far as I was concerned.
Hell yeah, man. And everybody watching this, think about that. Think about touching that shit. Don't fuck with the juice. Um, Doc Atrocity, absolute fucking pleasure. Death Matches and Death Metal signing off right now. It's officially, you have fucking 30 minutes left to get that free US shipping at Night Shift merch. And fucking, this was officially brought to you by Night Shift merch.
Backwards.
And